All right, and good evening to all of our viewers in Arkansas, Oklahoma, and in Southwest Missouri. I'm Joshua Weisel here. Let's get a look at your forecast. And the good news is, at least for this afternoon, the humidity is decreased, and so are those temperatures. Finally, not dealing with those, extreme temperatures like we saw yesterday. It was warm today, obviously, but it wasn't as warm as it has been the last couple of days, and certainly a lot better than it was yesterday. Especially because some areas like Okmulgee, Oklahoma, saw a heat index value yesterday. I believe it was 125 once we got through the actual forecasted timeline, and the official recording was at max 125, if I remember correctly. We posted it on social media, so check that out. Fortunately, today, we're not dealing with the same thing. In fact, most of the day's actually been pretty dry out there. We did have a low-end chance for maybe some pop-ups, only around 10% today. Then as we make our way into tomorrow, there's going to be no chance of rain. And then by the time we get to Friday, some rain chances return. But in the meantime, all quiet by the time we get to tomorrow morning. Lows are going to be anywhere from the upper 60s into the lower to the mid 70s. So the good news is, at least for tomorrow morning, maybe the morning after that, it's going to be one of those overnights where it's not going to feel like it's, a campfire next to you, where it's going to be, super warm and you're not going to be able to relax. Some of us are actually going to hit into the upper 60s, which is going to feel pretty good. Now, again, it's still going to be warm outside, but it's not going to be as warm as it has been. So there's some good news there. So we make our way into tomorrow. The good news is it's going to be another cool afternoon, upper 80s, lower 90s once again for the majority of the area. Some mid 90s in the River Valley once again as well. But like we said, humidity's decreased, and the good news is those temperatures are decreased as well. We can easily handle the upper 80s, lower 90s, right? But when you start getting into those triple digits like what we saw, that's a little bit of a problem. And unfortunately, we have more of that potentially on the way. We'll show you that with the 7-day forecast here coming up. But the good news is for tomorrow, we're going to be mostly to completely dry across the area. So you can see no highlighted risk for severe weather. Even better news, there really wasn't any areas popping up with the rain chances the next 12 hours or so. Even better news, really no highlighted areas for some precipitation. So we've got some good news there. And then as we make our way into the foghorns morning fog outlook, again, with some of those areas approaching the upper 60s, there could be some patchy areas, parts of northwest Arkansas, the River Valley, where you're starting to see some of those shades of red. But the good news is we're not expecting any sort of widespread impacts tomorrow morning for the morning commute. Huge shout out to Foghorns for sponsoring our channel. We're grateful to have them here as a sponsor of Weather 225. So be sure to support them like they support us, and visit them in Springdale and in Fayetteville. So shout out to Foghorns for the Foghorns Morning Fog Outlook. Stay tuned for those forecast updates throughout the week right here with Weather 225. Coming up, unfortunately, I'm going to be the bearer of bad news. We got more triple digits on the way, and it's not just 100. There's going to be some mornings that are going to be warm as well. It's going to be another warm extended forecast. We'll let you know more on that here coming up. If you like our media and forecast, be sure to support us today on Patreon. You can advertise with us this storm season and throughout the year. Contact us today for availability and pricing. Weather 225 since 2015. All right, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but we've got a little bit more of that terrible summer heat back on the way. The good news is, at least for, tomorrow and again on Friday, there's going to be some relief. But once we head back into the weekend and into the next week or two, that's when that more extreme summer heat's back on the way. We're still in a high risk for extreme heat between the 29th and the 30th across our coverage area. So unfortunately, we're going to keep the risk for extreme heat going into next week. In fact, the pattern for the next 6 to 14 days is still above average with those temperatures. And it's not just above, which is the orange. We're starting to get into the bright reds, and that means well above average temperatures are expected. Some additional news. We've been trending more in that normal range for, this week and parts of next week. But beyond, things are trending a lot drier. In fact, we're starting to see into the slightly below average range, and that does include all of our county coverage area. So, that means it may start to be a little bit more of that typical summer-like pattern where we're going to see a lot of hot and dry weather going forward. Hopefully this means that there will be some reduced dew points mixed in with that, so we don't have as high of those heat index values. We would always love for it to be that more dry heat, or it's a little bit more manageable. Still dangerous, but at least more manageable than 125 heat index values That's absurd. So hopefully that means maybe some reduction in the humidity. Here's a look at what we got. I mentioned this earlier. I hate to do the triple digits this far out, but the forecast as we're headed into next week, it's looking more and more favorable for it. So now I'm feeling a little bit more comfortable to keep not only the upper 90s, but even triple digits into next week. And notice every single day past Sunday is going to have that heat, and it's looking terrible as we head to next week. So keep that in mind. The other thing too, if you notice that your allergens were bad and also it smelled like smoke today, that Canadian wildfire smoke did make its way into the area with that system. That may linger in our sky here for the next couple of days as well. So we've got that. And the reason I'm highlighting that is if you have any sort of illness or respiratory issues, the next couple weeks are going to be a little bit of a problem depending on how sensitive you are to the temperatures, and for the next couple of days as well, maybe the overall air quality. It's not the most unhealthy air quality that we've seen, but it is going to lead to some impacts in some areas. And then next week, it's going to be hot. And like I said, it's not just Northwest Arkansas feeling this. There's some models that are actually indicating highs of 108 depending on the day. But as I mentioned earlier in our forecast segment, when you see 108, this many days out, you got to take that with a grain of salt. It is going to be incredibly hot next week, right? The problem is the models, they tend to be a little over dramatic with how high those temperatures will be this far out. And then they kind of start to lock in a little bit closer to that 4 to 6 day timeline. And then you start getting into the 3-day timeline. And that's when it really starts to get a little bit more set in stone with a more realistic outcome. I think that there will be highs anywhere from 104 to 107 in parts of the area, but the further out you get, the more uncertain it is. I don't want you to look at the temperatures and necessarily panic, because I know sometimes it can lead to some issues, especially if you have any sort of illnesses that the temperatures impact. We want to give you a realistic forecast and go, the models are saying one thing, but from experience, I think it's going to be this. That's kind of what we're talking about here. Same with Northeast Oklahoma. Highs could be anywhere from 100 to 105 as we make our way into next week. The thing is, though, the temperatures, they're going to make a faster return to Oklahoma by the time we get to Saturday. So Oklahoma is going to see a longer stretch of those high temperatures compared to parts of Arkansas, Southwest Missouri, where it's going to start to build back in a little bit slower. Arkansas, Southwest Missouri, enjoy the cooler weather while it lasts, because Oklahoma is going to get it a lot faster. Southwest Missouri, there is going to be a chance for some thunderstorms once again on Friday, and then we're back into the triple digits. So we have a rough forecast ahead. We had all of the storm activity, and that was going to be the dominant headline for us as we made our way into parts of May and June. And unfortunately, now that we're in July, things are quieting down, but there's a little bit of a trade-off with Mother Nature where you leave one hazard and then you start getting into the next. And it looks like we've got extended extreme heat that's arriving to the area by the time we get to the weekend and next week. So stay here with Weather 225. We'll keep you informed with the very latest.